Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Friday, December 16th, 2022. The three of us are back. George Kerth, joined by Cody Roadcap and Tyler Snyder. First off, applause to Cody for hanging in there on our Tuesday show and doing a fantastic job giving the people all that info on waivers by yourself. Cody, thank you.
Of course, of course.
And Tyler Snyder back with us as well. Tyler, how are you feeling going into the fantasy playoffs?
I was looking through it, and out of my 10 leagues, I made the playoffs in 7 of them. It's hard to argue with 70%. I wish it was 100%, but I'm just hoping that out of 7 leagues I'm in the playoffs, I can at least win one championship. That's the hope.
It's a pretty good percentage there. I'm actually at 4 of 8, so 50%. So I had a couple where I missed by a couple points here, one game there. It was close at the end, but Cody, I don't know if you want to share your percentage or not. I know you had a struggle in our league of record. I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, so I think I'm 2 of 6. Is that something like that? I had our league of record. I had over 340 points left on my bench this year, by far the league leader. So just bad lineup management. And then our other league that we play with our significant others, I went into the week with a 1-point lead, having James Conner versus the Patriots defense. James Conner got 20.5. The Patriots defense got 22. So I lost out on the playoffs by half a point. So all you out there that were on the brink or just missed, just know I feel your pain and I am crying in silence with you.
Yeah, you can tell the difference between us with Cody in 6 leagues, George in 8, and me in 10. That's a big difference there. Every year I say I need to get out of some leagues. I'm in too many leagues. And then every year somebody's like, you want to join a league? And I'm like, yeah, I do, obviously. So every year it grows. I will throw out, just as a shout out, my fiance was in, was it 5 leagues this year? It was 5 leagues this year. 4 leagues, sorry. She was in 4 leagues this year. In the 2 leagues, she missed the playoffs completely. In the other 2 leagues, she is number 1 seed, first round bye. So, or at least just a first round bye. So that's kind of crazy.
Number 2
it's
seed
either
after you beat her.
Oh yeah, leave it to Tyler to be the one to.
Look, I'm a jerk, but
beat her in fantasy. By the way,
win.
Let's make sure that was very clear. Beat her.
Yeah,
in fantasy.
yeah.
Oh,
you don't need any soundbite coming out of this.
But no, either first round bye or not in the playoffs. So to be in 4 leagues and not have a game this week is pretty weird.
Yeah, really, 100%. And I was not lucky enough to get a bye in any of my leagues, but solid 3 seed here, 5 seed there. I'll just take being in the playoffs. You just got to get into the tournament. You never know what's going to happen. But if you're not in the playoffs, do not give up. Keep playing. Hopefully your league has some incentive for your consolation bracket. But if not, it never hurts to just go out there and keep studying up for next year. We'll talk some more fantasy tips for your playoffs as we move through our show. We're going to hit some NFL news and notes, give you some of those tips, and we're going to break down every Week 15 game in our Week 15 preview. It's going to be a busy show because there's no more bye weeks. But make sure you find us on thecouchgms.com, where Cody put on a great start-sit article to help you set your lineups for the first week. And check out our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, at the Couch GMs. You can join our Discord chat to ask us questions 24/7. The link is in the description of the podcast video you're watching or listening to. All right, guys, let's jump into NFL news. All right, starting off with NFL news, there's not a lot of significant fantasy news here, so I'm just going to rapid fire a couple of things here. You guys can decide if you want to chime in or not, and then we can move on to our next segment. So the Cardinals GM is taking a leave of absence due to a medical condition, so we are wishing him the best, hoping he can come back to start off the offseason or next year fully healthy. So just thoughts out there to the Cardinals general manager. There will not be a game in Mexico next year as Mexico's stadium, I'm forgetting the name right now, are starting to do some renovations to fix their turf issues and get ready for the 2026 World Cup. There's most likely going to be 2 games in Germany next year to make up for that international game that we're missing. So that's some news that we were not expecting. That'd be kind of cool to see. Maybe some more
karaoke football.
Karaoke football, early morning football for all of us over here in the States. Cannot deny a quadruple header that we get every time there's a game over in Europe. Speaking of upgrades for the World Cup, the Broncos are going to announce $100 million worth of upgrades to their stadium. That one's actually not for the World Cup, but the Cowboys announced they're going to be upgrading their stadium ahead of the World Cup, and I expect even more stadiums to come, as there's, I believe, 6 or 7 host cities that are going to be playing World Cup games in NFL stadiums. So we're going to get to see some cool little upgrades to some of these places. Anything to add into NFL news, or you want to move right on?
Let's move on.
All right. So we promised it. Why don't we talk about some of our best fantasy football playoff tips? So I know that there's a lot of pressure going into your fantasy playoffs. If it's your first time, I mean, just look at it as another game, but maybe there's a couple of things that you can do differently than you do during the regular fantasy season, considering there's no bye weeks. If you lose, you're out. Maybe you want to start looking ahead. So I'm going to start off with, if you happen to have a bye week, it might seem weird, but bench your entire roster. So I've seen a lot of people that were confused by seeing this tip starting to circle around social media this week, but we talk a lot about being able to cut guys on your bench and add somebody that has not played yet, so you basically can get ahead on the waiver wire. By doing that, if you see somebody that's currently in your starting lineup or normally in your starting lineup that comes down with a significant injury, is definitely out for the rest of the season, you have the ability to cut them early and get ahead on waivers for the next week.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip, and it's extra important this week to do that, whether you're, buy for the actual, the main tournament, or if you're in consolation, you can do it no matter what. But there's 3 games on Saturday. We're going to talk about the games in a little bit, but that gives you some flexibility. If you had a guy go down, or, say we're not rooting for it. You never root for injuries, but if something like what happened to Kyler Murray happens on Saturday, you can cut him off your roster and then pick up a new player for the Sunday slate and get ahead of the waiver wire, not get into a fab war if you're in a fab league. So definitely a great advice on that one.
And obviously that's in reference to redraft leagues. If you're in a keeper or dynasty league, you're not going to be cutting guys because they get injured. It's just not the way that it works. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a good tip. And I know one of the things you're going to think, I mean, season long, you see somebody get hurt, you're like, oh man, I'm just going to stash them. I'll let them come back later. The fantasy playoffs are 3 weeks. So if somebody goes down and you think they're going to miss 2 games, well, that's it. That's the whole fantasy playoffs, those next 2 games after it. So, even these minor injuries might mean season long for fantasy purposes.
Exactly.
Sure.
And that's why we have to just be watching. Keep an eye on Twitter, even if you can't watch the games on Saturday. Go check your lineups on Sunday morning and see if anything happened. Tyler, I think you have the next tip. Go right ahead.
Yeah, my next tip is just don't get cute. You have some guys that got you to the fantasy playoffs. Don't bench them now because you think you're going to be a guru. One that popped up earlier today is we had somebody reach out to us and ask if they should start Isaiah Pacheco against the horrid Houston Texans defense, or if they should play Nick Chubb against the tough Baltimore Ravens defense. Now I get it. You look at matchups and analytics and statistics, like it might say, you know what, maybe we go Pacheco. Pacheco's been coming alive the last few weeks, going against the worst run defense in the league. Nick Chubb has a tougher matchup. They haven't been gelling on offense quite as well with Deshaun Watson right now. So maybe it makes you want to lean Pacheco, but I would say stick with Nick Chubb. You don't want to lose a fantasy game and say it's because I benched one of my best players because I thought I was doing something special. If you play Nick Chubb and you end up losing because you played Nick Chubb over Pacheco, then, so be it. Fantasy happens. You can't win every single game every single year, but you don't want to lose because you benched some of your best players. Don't get cute. Ride your hot guys. Ride your best guys.
Yeah, and I mean, I can even back it up. It's not as much of a play your stud kind of deal, but Trevor Lawrence was on my roster last week in our league of record, and I decided to bench him to play on Thursday night Derek Carr. If I would have played Trevor Lawrence against Cody, who was already out of the playoffs anyway, I would have gotten a bye. Instead, I am the 5th seed. So Cody playing spoiler, exactly. But again, I had this all lined up that my idea was to play Trevor Lawrence. He was going to be my guy this week, and then because of that injury risk, I decided not to, and it came back to bite me. So I'm with you, Tyler. Play the guys who got you there. Don't get too cute.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is evaluate. When we say play your guys, you do sometimes have to evaluate not the Nick Chubbs. Like I'm not you're never going to bench Christian McCaffrey. Not going to be like, oh, this is a really good matchup for a tight end. Let me not play Travis Kelce. Like that's not going to happen. But some of those guys that might have helped get you there, like Travis Etienne, he got really good for a stretch after they got rid of James Robinson. Last 4 weeks, he hasn't crossed double-digit points. Okay, now we're starting to see a trend of him going down. Maybe that's when you start to be like, okay, Pacheco has a really great matchup this week. So those tiers of guys you can still, pivot back and forth on. But if you drafted him to be your guy, like you're going to ride with Jonathan Taylor. Hasn't been the best year, but he's going to be in your lineup. Josh Jacobs, Alvin Kamara. I think he's still in the same situation. Like it's really going to be hard pressed to not play Alvin Kamara despite him, being like the 22nd overall running back this year, just because of what his potential is. And he has a great matchup this week too. So
yeah,
I guess it's my
Cody,
turn.
I think, go right ahead. Continue.
All right. And if you listen to the Tuesday show, you kind of heard me talk about this, but there is no bye week. So you don't need, a backup quarterback anymore if you have a top guy. You don't need a backup tight end if you have a top guy. But what you can be doing is looking ahead to your next matchup. You're not actually playing the games. You're not worried about like you're, falling for a trap game. We can't control that in fantasy football. So look at the defensive matchups. I talked about it on Tuesday, like the Tennessee Titans. They don't have a great matchup this week on defense, but they have a really good one next week. Tyler will back me up on that one in terms of their defense. Go pick them up this week. Hold them for next week. You get ahead of the waiver wire. People are looking not to add them this week because not a good matchup. Quarterbacks is another great example of those like streaming positions. Tight ends, I mean, that is a dartboard. But if there's a really good matchup or someone's playing the Cardinals, who are the worst team against tight ends, maybe you want to pick up that guy. But yeah, depth is not as important. You've made it through the season. You have the guys that you're going to start pretty much every week. You have one or two pieces you might back and forth with. So take advantage of those extra bench spots to set yourself up for future weeks.
Yeah, great point. I mean, think ahead, play it smart. This is the fantasy playoffs. This is going for the fantasy championship. This is what we played all season long for. Put in the extra effort now. It's going to be worth it. Trust me. It feels good to be able to look back and be like, yeah, I won a championship on you guys. Even next year, you go into the league next year and you really struggle. I mean, look at Cody in our league of record. I mean, he is struggling in our league of record all season long. But you know what? Can't talk trash on him. He just won the championship. So
I got that ring.
It kind of gives you an edge over the rest of your league for a couple of years. Gives you at least a talking point.
He's got that ring that he bought himself because he didn't think the trophy that he wins with the league was enough. So be a Cody to an extent, but
I think being Cody's a great advice. Why don't we actually get into breaking down some of these games in our Week 15 preview?
Week 15 starts off, with Thursday, but 3 games on Saturday. So make sure you're going out there checking your lineups early. And if you have to check them on Friday night, Saturday morning, do not miss out on that 3-game slate where you might end up having a situation where like maybe a Lamar Jackson's out or watch Jeff Wilson. We'll get to those 2 games. We got to start off with the early game, the Indianapolis Colts traveling to the Minnesota Vikings. And this is one of the few games this week where there's not really any significant injuries to watch out for. So we're just going to be talking straight matchup. Who you think we should be playing where? I'll start with the Colts side of the ball because they're the kind of team that's been very interesting as of late. We just mentioned Jonathan Taylor earlier. He's somebody who should stay in your lineup. He's been good enough that he's at least been an RB2 as he's been playing. But their wide receivers are where I want to look now. So there's been the Paris Campbell jump ups. There's Alec Pierce having a week here or there. They obviously still have Michael Pittman. Where are you at on playing some of these receivers this week?
I'm still only playing Michael Pittman for this. I'm not going deep dive into the Paris Campbells or is Doolin still there? Like not doing that. But Pittman is a great play this week. I talked a couple weeks ago how bad the Lions defense was. Well, the Vikings have passed them in terms of overall defense in the league. But in terms of fantasy, they are over the last 5 weeks giving up the most points to fantasy wide receivers. They are allowing the most explosive plays, and they're allowing the most yards per attempt to the outside wide receivers, which is primarily Michael Pittman's position. So he is a guy that is like hasn't been the guy we hoped for when, we took him way back in round 3, potentially round 4 at the beginning of the season. But this is a week, like if you held on to him, you threw him in got him in, thrown into a trade or something like that. I do think Michael Pittman is a solid play this week.
Okay. I was thinking about asking this question before the podcast. I saved it for now. I'm in a situation where we have Isaiah Pacheco, who we said is against, Houston's horrible run defense, and Michael Pittman. I can play one of the two. Where would you go in that situation?
That is a super tough question. I think they're very close. We've seen how bad Houston Texans run has allowed. I'm going to lean Michael Pittman, especially because I know this is in our league of record, I believe, and you have it's half point PPR, so that gives a little bit of an uptick to the fantasy wide receiver. And I think when we were talking offline about the Pacheco Nick Chubb that someone reached out to us about is like it's still the Kansas City Chiefs. Like this team has yet to prove that they want to run the ball. So like Pacheco may still have a good game on his 10 to 12 carries, but like it'll just be what he's been getting. It'll be that 10, 12 points or something like that. Michael Pittman actually has a higher ceiling this week, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Cody, I think you explained it. I don't think I need to add anything else in there.
All right, we can move on then to the Vikings side of the ball, where it's Dalvin Cook. Even though he hasn't been fantastic, he's going to be in your lineups. Justin Jefferson still carrying you. TJ Hawkinson got a touchdown last week. I think that's his first one in a Vikings uniform.
Second, yeah.
Second, my bad. But it hasn't been as fantastic as we hoped since he moved over there. Adam Thielen or to not Adam Thielen? That is the weekly question.
Thielen's okay. He's a flex play. He's not somebody I'm like dying to get in my lineup, but depending on what your options are, where the injuries are at, you might have to.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can do better. But if you're in a situation like Snyder was last week, Devin Duvernay, and I remember who the other person was, I'd rather have Adam Thielen.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Look, it was a rough week. I still won that league, by the way. I won that week, but I didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Thinking about it a little bit further, I'm out on Adam Thielen. The Colts are actually, we think of them as a bad team, but they are allowing the least amount of fantasy points to fantasy wide receivers. They're the top team against them. So I'm completely out on Adam Thielen. Justin Jefferson's a no-brainer still, but I'm out on Adam Thielen.
I mean, they have played 2 games against the Titans who don't have wide receivers. They did play against the Texans twice who don't have anybody. They played against the Jags who don't have anybody. So division-wise alone, they, right there is going to help out their fantasy stats for the season. But I do agree. It depends. Like, I think Adam Thielen, if you got, I like Juju. I like Pittman both more than Adam Thielen. Maybe even a Jerry Jeudy more than Adam Thielen. But if you're talking like really lower end, like the Deontay Johnsons or DJ Chark, maybe the up and coming Josh Palmer, yeah, I'd probably bench them for Adam Thielen.
Okay. DJ Chark's one that's interesting to me, but we can talk about the Lions in a bit. We mentioned Devin Duvernay in this whole conversation too, so let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens traveling in a divisional match with the Cleveland Browns. Ravens quarterback news, Lamar Jackson is out for the week. Tyler Huntley has been cleared from concussion protocol and will start, so I don't think there's any really re-injury concerns there on that one. But even yet, I think Huntley can be a decent play because of his rushing ability if you are someone who is in need of a quarterback. And the running back situation, I guess we're going to play the game of J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, both or neither?
Neither.
Dobbins.
I'm also Dobbins. Neither. So explain your neither since you're different.
I mean, look, yes, he came out. He scored last week, which, I mean, and it helps. He came out with 18 points in his first game back, 120 yards and a touchdown. Sounds exciting. Awesome. He also only carried the ball 15 times. He really looked slow. I mean, I remember talking to you and your girlfriend, who is also a big Ravens fan, and we all agreed, like, he doesn't look right. He did do well, but he didn't look right. Um, Plus, they're splitting the ball out a lot. I don't know. I don't trust it this week. I would try to avoid J.K. Dobbins if I can. I mean, if you can't help it and you have to play J.K. Dobbins, go for it. But like, I would rather trust a DeAndre Swift. I would throw in a Brian Robinson, an Isaiah Pacheco, um, Najee Harris, who we've been kind of down on, Dante Foreman, even. Like, I'd play all of them over J.K. Dobbins.
So I think there's been a bit more that's come out about that not looking right running the ball with J.K. Dobbins since. Number one, he did say like he was upset with himself because he's not fully up to conditioning, that he thinks he could have scored that touchdown if he wasn't like running out of gas at the end of that run. And the other thing is I think a lot of it's mental that he doesn't want to plant on that leg, which is why he was hopping on his other leg as opposed to actually trying to drive into the end zone at the end of that. So I'm not super worried about a re-injury or the fact that he's not 100% healthy. I think a lot of it's mental and conditioning. But I do get what you're saying, and I would agree more if it wasn't for the fact that they're playing the Browns, who give up the third most points to running backs. At that point, I think since he's probably going to get more carries than Gus Edwards, I'll say play JK, but don't play Gus.
Yeah, I'm not playing Gus, but like 15 carries is like really good for today's NFL. Like
That's actually true too.
That's a lot of carries. So 15 in your first game back going against the 30th ranked defense and running backs. DeAndre Swift was probably the only guy that I would consider over J.K. Dobbins on the list that you threw out there of Brian Robinson, Pacheco,
Najee Harris, Pacheco.
Najee Harris, and Deontay Foreman.
Yeah, agree to disagree. I'm not playing Dobbins.
All right. I mean, so you definitely we'll have to. If you have any questions specifically on your lineup, you can send them in to us. We'll let you know what the three of us think on that situation. Moving to the Browns side of the ball, there's a lot of people that are still out here trying to play Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson had a decent game last week. He scored about 16 points. I still don't like it, especially in this matchup, even though the Ravens have looked like a mess. Their defense, at least their passing defense, has been pretty solid. So I'm still out on Deshaun Watson. Do you guys disagree with that?
Deshaun Watson did get 16 points, but he also threw 42 passes. Like, I don't expect Deshaun Watson to be throwing over 40 passes a game too often. I mean, they probably will play from behind decently often, and they might play from behind this game. I don't know. It's a weird situation. The Ravens are a weird team that win a lot, but are never like ahead. They never dominate. They never win handedly. So it's a weird it's a weird game to predict, but it's also divisional, and divisional games are always strange. So it's really hard to predict, but in this game, no, I'd probably avoid Deshaun Watson.
All right, Deshaun Watson or Tyler Huntley, the guy that he's going up against?
Huntley.
Because I'm going
for
Watson,
the rushing ability.
I mean, Watson has the rushing ability.
I know, but the Ravens have more designed quarterback runs as opposed to Watson's. Really, if he's going to get yards on the ground, it's going to be scrambling.
I think in that matchup, I would probably go to Deshaun Watson personally. I know a lot of people are big on Tyler Huntley. I'm not thrilled with him. I know last week when I mentioned, do we even play Tyler Huntley? You guys are both like, yes. I'm like, okay, cool. But I'm not as big into Tyler Huntley, so I would play Watson over Huntley. But then again, like, if they were both on free agency, I'm probably looking to see if I have any other options first.
And I'll say it's hard to tell exactly what Huntley would have done last week, but he had 6.6 points in the slightly over a quarter he played. If you project that out, you could say he scored about 20. So that was still a solid quarterback week. It's just unfortunately left with a concussion.
Sounds good. I could ask you some more quarterbacks, but we'll talk about it as we go on. Okay. So you guys want to move on to the next matchup?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Dolphins Bills, the Saturday night game of the week, and there's potential snow. And the best storyline about this is how last week it was 55 degrees and the Dolphins had propane heaters on the sideline. And now this week they're going to Buffalo to play in the, I should say, expected snow. You can't believe there's going to snow until it's actually there, but in Buffalo it's a good bet. Does the snow concern you at all with any of the Dolphins' pieces? Obviously, we're still playing Tyreek Hill. Does that concern you, though, about a Tua Stream, a Jalen Waddle? Both, I mean, I think we're probably out on Mostert and or Jeff Wilson this week, unless you guys disagree with that one. So mainly Tua and Jalen Waddle.
I mean, Mike McDaniels was strolling down the practice field wearing a T-shirt that said "It's not cold enough." So I think he's ready for the snow game. He was
He
just
is, but
trolling
are
the
his
Bills.
players?
On a side note, Mike McDaniel is slowly becoming one of my favorite coaches.
He's fun. He is
Just
a
Oh,
fun
because,
yeah.
coach.
he's almost like Dan Campbell in a way. Like
Mhm.
they're different personalities, but they're like guys you just like want to listen to. You want to, be around. So, and I did appreciate, him talking about like it's a mindset. Like if you
Yeah.
tell yourself that it's not that cold, like you can work through it, which is true to some degree. I mean, obviously, if it's cold, it's cold and it's hard to play, and your fingers hurt and stuff like that. But I guess back to actual football,
No,
you
like
can.
okay, so you asked, "Am I afraid of the Dolphins going to the Bills? Are they going to be ready for the cold weather? Are they going to be able to play in the snow?" Um, this is, I think, one of the bigger misconceptions about football, in my opinion. Like this is totally hot takes, opinion take. Um, but I don't think that matters. Yes, the Dolphins are from Florida. Yes, Florida is warmer weather. Yes, these players have been playing in warmer temperatures this year. But you're talking about a team that is made up of people that played in NFL teams all across the country in their careers. They have played in colleges all across the country in their career. They have played in high schools all across the country. There's a good to fair chance that these guys have played cold games at some point in their career. You're a football player. It's tough mentality. You should be able to play in anything. There may be some people that are, have been longtime Dolphins players. They might not be ready for the cold as much, but I think for the most part, everybody's done it before. Everyone kind of knows what they're walking into. That all being said, I still think the Bills are the better team, and the Bills are going to make this a really tough game for the Dolphins. So, still a little iffy on my Dolphins, but for the most part, I'm starting my normal guys from Miami. I don't care who they're playing. I'm playing Tyreek. I'm playing Jalen Waddle. Um, I think the biggest question is, Jeff Wilson. I mean, I know he's been kind of up in the air with his injuries and stuff, but personally, even if he does play, I'm benching Jeff Wilson.
So let me know if I'm getting into the "are you getting too cute" part of it, because we talked about the play your guys, whatever. But he hasn't been that good. Jalen Waddle concerns me greatly because he is hurt. His last 4 weeks, he scored 8.6, 11, 1.4, and 4.1. Being injured, potentially in the snow, that just seems like a recipe for failure when it comes to him. I'm not worried about Tyreek. I'm not even worried about Mostert. I'm the one that's like, I'll go out there and play Mostert, especially in the snow, because I think they're going to have to put more of a focus on running the ball. And the fact that Jeff Wilson's hurt, he's going to get a couple extra carries. But the one I'm worried about is Waddle.
I'm not worried about Waddle. If I have Waddle, I'm playing him. Okay, we talked about it earlier. Adam Thielen, Jalen Waddle.
That's not a fair comparison.
Well, it's just throwing it out there. That's the first question.
Jalen Waddle in that one, but
All
I'm
right,
agreeing with George.
Terry McLaurin or Jalen Waddle.
McLaurin.
Amari Cooper, Jalen Waddle.
Amari Cooper.
Amari Cooper.
He's
I
so
actually
much
might
better
go
at home.
Waddle. I don't know if I'll go Waddle the other two or not. They're all very close. I don't know. Sure, I'll
Jerry
go Waddle
Jeudy
the other two, and then
or Jalen Waddle.
Judy.
Okay, I was gonna say Waddle because I know he had 3 touchdowns, but that offense is hot garbage.
Yeah, I would have taken Waddle over every single guy I mentioned. So I
guess
don't know if I'm the hot takes guy or not.
Well, I do think you did discredit the weather too much. I do think that is a big part of it. Yes, these people have played in it, but it is definitely a home field advantage for a team that practices in when it's cold in Miami. That's 60 degrees, 55 degrees, and that's what they practice in every day. Like that's what they live in. Even when you go away for vacation for a week, if you go somewhere hot, if you go to Arizona, you think it's the hottest place in the world, and Arizonians are like, dude, this is a dry heat, man. I'm comfortable. Like if you
No,
go
but
somewhere cold for a week, you have to adjust. There
But
is
even
a
yet,
real
there's things that players can wear, and it is a mindset. It's something that, if there's experience, I'm not worried about the cold by the fact that, it's going to be 28 degrees, whatever. It's literally the snow that bothers me. because there's so many more factors when it comes to it's so much harder to pass the ball, it's so much harder to see, it's so much harder to get footing. Like the cold, I'm with Tyler. I don't think that bothers me a ton. Maybe there's a slight advantage, not a lot. It's the snow that bothers me.
I think, yeah, I was including all the weather. I know I was talking about the cold, but like
Mhm.
I don't have the stat in front of me. I'll try to find it and maybe even retweet it. But there is a significant, field advantage when we start getting into the mid 20s and lower for the cold weather teams. The snow's the big thing, and we're also like not talking about that. Tua has struggled the last 4 weeks. He has not looked like the potential MVP guy. He's been trying to push the ball down the field more, and that hasn't been working. This is a tough matchup. The Dolphins did win in week 2, so they have, they won that game, and Tyreek Hill only had 4 points because that was a low scoring game. So I guess all I'm trying to say is, with Jalen Waddle hurt, Jeff Wilson hurt, like this isn't that high powered offense that we thought of. Kind of like we're saying, don't get cute, but like this isn't the same Dolphins from a month ago that was lightening it up.
So I'll make my one devil's advocate last point, and then I'll move on because we've already spent way too much time on the Saturday games alone. But I would just say, yes, it is nerve wracking having a wide receiver in a snow game. But anytime you see a snow game, the people that you usually see that still do well in the passing game are the people that can take those short passes and do something with it. A lot of times, a tight end is usually pretty good in these games because they can take those short passes, those bodied passes. But you're talking about Jalen Waddle, a guy who can be quick and shifty. You get a corner that's trying to make a cut along with Jalen Waddle in the snow. There's a good chance he's going to slip. He's not going to be able to keep up with them. Waddle is good at taking those short screens, those quick slants, and doing something with it, and making people slip and fall in that snow. So that's the kind of guy I'd want to be throwing to. That's why I think he can still flourish in this type of game. But I guess that remains to be seen. We're just going to keep going back and forth forever if we stay on this. So, did we even talk about the Bills? I don't think we did. Is there any Bills we're not playing? I know we're starting. Even in the snow, we're still cool with Diggs, obviously, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Diggs is a no brainer, and
Mhm.
Josh Allen.
And
That's
Josh
it.
Allen. And I mean, Dawson Knox, you have a good point on him. I think he could be someone they lean on in this game. I actually like him more than Gabe Davis.
Okay.
I'm not going to argue about a tight end. I'm just not.
It's a dartboard. Go throw a dart at Dawson Knox this week, because why not?
I'd say if you're not willing to play Jalen Waddle because it's a snow game, you shouldn't be playing Gabe Davis either.
Yeah, I'm with
That's
that.
my argument. All right, enough of the Saturday games. Let's get on to the Sunday games. Keep this thing moving. We got the Atlanta Falcons taking on the New Orleans Saints. Hey, I know we have listed here no significant injuries. We do have Falcons starting quarterback Marcus Mariota is now done for the season. But he did get benched even before he decided to get the surgery for Desmond Ritter. So that's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if the Falcons, if they do worse, if they do better. Like, is there anybody you think that'll benefit from Desmond Ritter taking over? I really wish Pitts was still there, but because this would be a perfect time for him to step up. But anybody you think that'll step up now with Desmond Ritter here? Or are you avoiding this offense altogether?
Yeah, the guy I like the most, there's no way in the world I'm playing Desmond Ritter, but he's the guy I would like the most. So maybe if you're in super need of a, 2 quarterback league and all your guys are hurt, you are riding on Kyler Murray, and that's the guy you got to pick up. But no, the Falcons, I don't even like Cordarrelle Patterson anymore. So
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he was so hot coming out of the injury, and now he's just been very mediocre. What, 4 points, 8 points, 6 points? He's still splitting with Algier. Like no. I am probably avoiding every single Falcon, but holding on to some of those guys in dynasties and keepers because there's a chance that like Drake London's big in the future. You still got Kyle Pitts there. Not now.
Yeah, and the whole, we won't get too much into it, but the whole Mariota situation is really weird. He got benched and then like opted for surgery and now is saying like he won't be with the team at all, won't contact the team. Like it's just a weird
yeah,
situation. I don't know if he's bitter from getting benched or if something else is actually going on behind the scenes, but very strange situation.
yeah, it seemed like he left the team and then opted for surgery. So it definitely seemed like there was some bitterness. But on the Saints side, that is the other game. Chris Olave, you can still play him.
Yep.
Are you taking a flyer on tight end 3 or 5, whatever he's at now, Taysom Hill?
No.
Are we just not going to debate tight ends? I'm fine with that too.
We don't debate tight ends. You either got a guy
play
that
the
you know you're
top
starting, or
four.
you throw a dart. It's
Pretty much.
That's it.
Alvin
Falcons are
Kamara.
26th. Oh, Alvin Kamara for sure. I can't believe I forgot him. It's a great match.
It's because he's been so bad, but like I actually heard a really good point on Kamara. Like if you made the playoffs with Kamara on your roster, he has a good chance of rewarding you big time because he had the worst running back schedule heading up to the playoffs and has one of the best in the playoffs.
Yeah, Kamara for sure. I'm sorry.
Andy Dalton, Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson, but neither.
Look, in this matchup, it's not a bad play. I'm just saying.
The Saints defense, streaming option.
Andy Dalton.
That's a good streaming option.
Yeah. No, can we just take 30 seconds to be like, why are they still playing Andy Dalton and not going back to Jameis Winston?
I'm not getting into that. That's a conversation for off air.
All right.
Make it sound a lot than it really is.
I don't know.
Right,
Saints are a
over
mess.
some Winston.
Steelers,
Seriously?
Panthers. I think it's time to move on to Steelers, Panthers. Pittsburgh Panthers. Congrats on their big win. They beat the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle last week. No one saw that coming.
The Panthers control their own destiny to get in the playoffs
by winning their division. Let's just make sure that's
winning their division, but still, yes, playoffs.
We don't talk playoffs.
But Steelers wise, Najee Harris, DNP to full participant. Pat Freiermuth still DNP. We'll have to wait and see. Freiermuth is a fun tight end, so if he can't go, that just makes the tight end even worse.
Throw another dart.
But what are your guys' thoughts on these pieces in Pittsburgh?
I mean, you also missed the fact that Pickett is limited with a concussion, but I think limited this part of the week probably means he'll come back. Deontay Johnson, full participant, did not participate. That one concerns me because it was not listed as rest. I mean, I think I'm down to George Pickens.
Yeah, I think Pickens is a potential flex play. Yet again, I think it's a guy you could do better than. Not a guy I'm like excited to throw into my lineup, but like you could do worse than George Pickens. But Najee Harris is a weird one because it's like you drafted him high. You know, last week I benched Najee Harris because I was just like, I just don't trust him. And then I watched him get that touchdown, and I'm like, I know that potential is there. If the Steelers are going to get a touchdown, there's a good chance that Najee Harris could be the one getting it because he is still supposedly one of the stars of the team. But it's just, he's hard to trust. So I know you guys are a little iffy on Najee Harris just because this is the way we're going this episode. I'm going to throw out a couple names. Let me know who you would start. All right?
Yep.
Najee Harris, Isaiah Pacheco. Najee Harris or Bam Knight.
Bam.
Really quick, what's that matchup? Lines, Bam.
Najee Harris, Jamal Williams.
I'm going to go Najee.
No, Najee.
Okay.
I'll go Najee.
Brian Robinson?
Against the Giants, I'll go Najee.
I'll just throw out one more just for fun. Rashad White. Or Najee Harris.
Najee.
Yeah, I guess.
See, the fact that we have to debate
a
number one for a team who's like a clear number one, he's really not fighting much on that team, versus a guy who is still technically like a backup for a team that's struggling, and it's a toss-up. That's sad. That's a sad fall off for Najee Harris this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Did you also see that apparently Deontay Johnson said if Pickett can't go, he wants Mason Rudolph over Mitch Trubisky? So that could be fun. That I don't think that'll happen, but I thought that was funny that like that came out this week. I was like, wow, there must be.
Well, apparently in preseason they were like, we want Mason Rudolph to be our starter. He was their favorite. He was the guy the team was rallying around. So it's definitely interesting. And I mean, like, look, if Pickett can't go, why not just see what you got in Mason Rudolph? It lets the team know, like, do we move forward with Mitch? Do we move forward with Rudolph as the backup for next year? Get to see
Rudolph's been
both.
around these guys for years now too. Like, I mean, he's gotten a couple chances. He's proven he's not a starter, but he could be a solid backup. I think it's probably just they have a camaraderie with this guy, and he is a likable guy as opposed to I thought Mitch was, but he doesn't have the history with these guys that a Mason Rudolph
Miles
does.
Garrett disagrees.
Miles Garrett does disagree.
Wow.
So does
We
Mason
went
Rudolph's
there.
helmet, maybe. No, Carolina Panthers side of the ball. DJ Moore is the only significant injury. He needs a full participant in practice on Thursday. I know we talked a little bit about the running back situation in Carolina. They're kind of on a pretty big split. Chuba Hubbard's still getting a lot of carries here. Does that concern you? If you're a Dante Foreman owner, are you playing both? Are you playing neither? We're going to play this game again.
Playing neither.
Neither. Well,
You
it
said
depends
you'd
on
play
who the
him
other
over
running back
J.K.
is.
Dobbins.
Well, I would. That's why I said, well, like I would play Foreman over J.K. Dobbins, but that's because in my head, J.K. Dobbins is I'm not even thinking about starting him. So it's for me, I'd have to say start Foreman, but not a guy I'm rushing to put in my lineup again.
Mm-hmm. And I'd play J.K. Dobbins over both. It'd probably be J.K. and then Foreman. But yeah, I'm not rushing to put either of these guys in my lineup. And it stinks because Foreman showed so much potential when he first took over the starting job. DJ Moore, any chance at a flex option? He's been so up and down like the rest of the Panthers.
Nah.
I
The
play him over
Steelers
Adam
defense
Thielen.
hasn't really been
Play him
allowed
over
many
Adam
points.
Thielen.
Pittsburgh is 27th against wide receivers. They allow.
But
what's that?
lately,
Sixth
they
of-
have not been allowing much.
Yeah.
Well, they played Tyler Huntley
Okay.
last week, so
For a quarter, and then some guy, I don't even remember his name. So anyway, former Steelers wide receiver Chase Claypool, now on the Chicago Bears, are taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. Claypool and David Montgomery both did not participate in practice on Thursday. Doesn't look good for Claypool to go, and they said he's still learning the offense this many weeks in. And David Montgomery was with an illness, so most of the time should be fine. In 2022, it seems like illnesses linger. And it's improving rush defense, but if you're going to hit the Eagles, it's going to be on the ground. Are you worried about David Montgomery?
I would not be that worried. He's shown he can do it to some degree. I mean, I would play J.K. Dobbins over him, so that's where I'm at. I'm definitely a lot more confident in J.K. Dobbins than both of you guys are, which is weird because I've been out on him all season. But I think he's a solid play. And then I still think, despite the Eagles being technically the number one team against quarterbacks this year, Justin Fields is still a must start.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm starting Justin Fields, but I am not starting David Montgomery just because I feel like the Bears are going to fall behind early in this game and probably move away from the run. It's going to get to the point where if they're running, it's going to be a quarterback run, which is why Justin Fields is so valuable. So I would probably avoid David Montgomery.
I could see that. I think I would also be around where Cody is by playing Montgomery under JK, but he's right around that area. But definitely not rushing him into my lineup, as you say that. Eagles side of the ball, AJ Brown's good to go. Miles Sanders, good. Jalen Hurts. Dallas Goedert is expected to be activated off injured reserve. Good tight end news. Don't be too shocked because we haven't heard any good tight end news all year. And I think because of the state of the tight end market, he can go right back in your lineup if he's activated. And then my question is, how are you feeling about Devontae Smith this week? It is technically a tough Bears defense against the pass. I believe they're 6th. But Devontae Smith is coming off of, I think it's 3 in a row, 10-plus point games.
Play him.
Yeah, play him over Adam Thielen.
Would you play him over Michael Pittman, Mr. Michael Pittman over there?
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't, but that's just me. It's very close,
That's where the line is. All right.
Yeah.
I think that the pretty quick wrap up of Eagles Bears. We can move on to what could be either the best game or the biggest blowout of the week. Kansas City Chiefs traveling down to the Houston Texans. Interesting note on the Texans before we move into the actual game. Jeff Driscoll is listed as a quarterback / tight end on Yahoo. So the Texans are expected to continue their quarterback by committee approach. Jeff Driscoll played about 50% of the quarterback snaps last week. With how bad tight ends are, knowing that they're probably going to continue that, would you play Jeff Driscoll at tight end if you have him in Yahoo?
Absolutely.
Yep. 100%.
Because at least he like you said he played 50% of the snaps. He still throws the ball. Like this is
Yep.
like what the Saints wanted. I know it's 1 week, so I'm not trying to get over excited about that. But Taysom Hill plays like 6 snaps at quarterback, and you're like, yeah, I'll play Taysom Hill at tight end. Driscoll played 50% of it, so I think you can play him this week. And they're going to need to score points. Like I think last week was more of a fluke than what we expect to see out of the Texans going forward, and almost beating the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. Sorry it took me this long to bring it up, but what do you guys think the current spread is for the Chiefs-Texans game?
13.5. And that feels
17.5. I feel like that's what I'm remembering.
And question 2, before I even give you the answer.
Okay.
Do you think it is more or less than when they played the Rams?
How early did they play the Rams?
Recently. A few weeks ago.
Trick question. I'm
less.
going to say it's more. I don't know.
So the point spread against the Rams was 14.5 points in the Chiefs' favor. Against the Texans, it's 14. So according to Vegas, it is worse odds than against the Rams.
I just nailed that. I said 13.
You did.
I'm so proud of myself.
14-point spread. That's nuts.
Okay.
But I'm just surprised that it's, it was worse for the Rams. Because, I know the Rams are bad with missing everybody else. But, I mean, the Texans?
Trap game.
Anybody picking
the Texans are going to be everyone's trap game now? Like, is that what you're going to say?
Maybe. I guess we'll
Anybody picking up Chris Moore?
No, but that was a sick catch. I mean, he had a lot of them. He had like 10 catches.
Yeah, he had a lot of catches. And you're talking about a team that's going to fall behind early, most likely, and just be throwing and throwing and throwing and throwing. Like, potential sneaky flex player, or are we getting too cute?
Too cute. George is nodding his head. I'm about to slap him through the screen.
If it looks like Nico Collins isn't going to play, Brandon Cooks limited. If Brandon Cooks plays, no way. If Brandon Cooks and Collins are both out, sneaky flex play.
You play Chris
They're
Moore
going to throw
Adam
40 times. Slight edge Adam Thielen.
Okay, well, that's been like our baseline of like the bottom tier flex. So I think you answered the question.
So I think basically what we're saying is don't play Chris Moore this week, but DFS, Chris Moore is going to be really cheap.
Yes.
So
yes,
good DFS play this week is Chris Moore.
There you go. That's a good way to put it. And then the Chiefs side of the ball, Kadarius Toney, limited participant in practice. I don't think it's going to matter or be someone you're going to play if he does play, but it's just something worth noting. And we talked so much about Isaiah Pacheco, great matchup. Jerick McKinnon, even potential, deeper flex play if you need somebody that you picked up off the waiver wire. But then the Texans are really tough in the air because people can just run on them so much. So it seems like the guy that we play if we need to is Juju. Are you going with Juju in this matchup?
Over Adam Thielen.
So he's barely. So we're considering the very last guy that you would play in your flex is Adam Thielen. So above Adam Thielen means yes.
Correct. That is my yes, no. And
How does Adam Thielen feel about this?
This is no disrespect. I love Adam Thielen. I hate that he's Viking because he's a great. He seems like I don't know him personally. I'm acting like I do. Seems like a great guy, great player. But yeah, I think Juju. He is a solid flex option.
He gets enough just targets. Said choo-choo.
Maybe I was. Choo-choo.
All right, I'm hopping off.
I'm hopping off the
Thielen train. I'm off the Thielen train. Yeah, what is happening on this podcast right now? We are spiraling.
We're having a great time. That's what's happening. We got 2 more 1:00 games. First off, it's the Dallas Cowboys going down to warm Jacksonville and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, limited participant in practice. Because he got through the game last week, I think he's going to be good to go, and it's just rep management. So tough matchup for them Jaguars. Christian Kirk's probably somebody that got you where you are. He's probably someone that's still in your lineup. But you mentioned earlier with Travis Etienne. Where are you guys at on Etienne in your lineups?
I'd play J.K. Dobbins over him.
So J.K.
Bro,
Dobbins is a
what?
running back guy.
No,
Over
I'm
Travis
playing ETN over J.K. Dobbins.
I'll break the tie. I'll play J.K. Dobbins over Travis Etienne.
Why? Why are we so high on J.K.? All right, we're gonna have to make a bet on J.K. Dobbins this week.
It's not. It's not high. And one, I put Travis Etienne in the sit, so I have to stand by it. And I put J.K. Dobbins in the start, so I have to stand by that in the article this week. But it's just because Travis Etienne over the last 4 weeks has not broken double-digit points, and the Cowboys are a top 3 defense against running backs.
Travis Etienne is the same argument I was making with Jalen Waddle earlier. I mean, there's not really an injury thing there, but he's been struggling in a bad matchup. Like, I'm worried about it. If you might have to play him, and you could end up having a good game. But if I have another option that I'm at least mostly confident in, I'm going with it.
Not J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins for me, I'm more with Cody, I guess. But that's just the agree to disagree that we talked about earlier. Any other Jaguars? Evan Ingram going to get another 15 targets?
Dude, I'm not
Anybody?
arguing tight ends.
Yeah,
We're not arguing tight ends.
I put them on the sit list because they don't chase points. But if you want to play, if you want to go for it, go for it.
It's
On
a
the
dart
Jag
throw
side.
anyway. Cowboys side of the ball then. Is it both running backs, just Zeke, just Pollard?
I'm playing both.
Okay.
I mean,
Play both over Swift, Mister. I mean, I guess you're on a bye, but would you play both over Swift?
I played both the last 2 weeks. Swift had one good week over those last 2 weeks. I mean, they've both been solid. I'd play both of them over Swift right now. Until I see consistency out of Swift. I really do think Swift is a good running back, and I do think over these playoffs, he's going to give you at least 1, maybe 2 games where he's going to put up close to 20 points and have a great game. I truly believe that. But I don't like guessing which one it's going to be. The Cowboys like using both running backs. So, yeah, I'd play them both over. I'd play them both over J.K. Dobbins as well.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I would say
yeah, I'd play both over JK too.
If you made me pick one, I would like if you were, you have Austin Eckler and you need to decide between Pollard and Zeke, you don't have space for both. I'd pick Pollard, but I think you can play
Agreed.
both.
I agree.
I'm with you too.
Pollard
It's just
first.
the big play upside.
Took
I mean,
52
Zeke might
minutes
even get a
first,
couple
I'll
extra
agree.
carries, but yeah, it took that long. And we're still in the 1:00 games at this point too. We got to get moving a little bit, I guess. CeeDee Lamb, any worries with him or the Cowboys offense in general?
No, I'm playing Lamb. I'll play Schultz. I'm not playing
We're
Noah
not
Brown.
debating tight ends.
I'm not playing Michael Gallup. I'm playing those guys.
All right.
Yep. Fair enough.
Cool. Finally, last 1:00 game. Detroit Lions traveling to the New York Jets. So we already talked about DeAndre Swift a little bit. I think we have a decent idea of where we're at on him. The Lions wide receivers have been balling, and it's mostly because the Lions are really coming together here these last few weeks. And Amon-Ra St. Brown hasn't even been the guy that's really been under the microscope, but he's been consistently good. He's still in your lineup every single week. So we're kind of sitting here on the DJ Chark, Jameson Williams debate. So Jets might be the toughest matchup they've had. Where are you at on either of them two?
I'm out. This Jets defense is too good.
Yeah, I'm out. This Jets defense is insane.
8 weeks since the Jets defense has allowed a 300-yard passer, a 100-yard rusher, or a 100-yard receiver. 8 weeks. No one is a skill position has crossed 100 yards, and no quarterback has thrown for over 300. This defense is legit. I'll still play Amon-Ra St. Brown because he's the number one target, but I'm not getting cute with the, maybe the DJ Chark deep shot, the Jameson Williams deep shot. Not Josh Reynolds, not getting into that debate.
And putting Jared Goff pretty far down your streamer list then too. So
Correct.
We're really trying to limit our Detroit Lions to Amon-Ra St. Brown and your potential DeAndre Swift. I guess I have to mention Jamal Williams there too because of the touchdown potential.
I like Jamal better this week because he could get a touchdown. Like Swift can too, but if they get close, like it's going to be the Jamal but it's not a great matchup for either of them.
Well, let me also just mention with the Swift thing before we move on. Cody was exactly right with what was going to happen over the last 3 weeks. So Swift was off the injury report. He had his big uptick. We thought Swift was back. Swift was back on the injury report last week. He was limited again. He's off the injury report this week. Could be another limited Jamal game, more Swift.
Just a bad matchup.
Just a bad matchup.
And if you're in the playoffs, you probably got there without Swift, so you have some better options.
Yes, exactly. That's true too. That's why you're playing both Cowboys running backs if you're Tyler. But anyway, Jets side of the ball. Garrett Wilson's been good. We talked about Bam Knight being a solid play at an RB2 or a flex.
Whoa, George, are you finally on the Garrett Wilson train?
I am finally on
Choo
the Garrett Wilson train.
Choo, man. About time.
It took me a while. I think I was just burned after I saw what he was doing with Zach Wilson, who's now going to be the QB2. But every game that he's been without Zach Wilson, he's done well. So I've been enlightened by you guys over the last few weeks. Wearing on me. I see it now. I see it.
Good. About time. Choo.
Choo. And speaking of that, the Lions are an improving team, but they're still horrid against passers. So Mike White is my favorite quarterback stream of the week as well.
Which is wild.
I know, right?
Wild.
But he's been good. And even against Buffalo, which is an awful matchup last week, and the fact that he was taken out of the game 2 separate times, he still scored about 15 points. This Jets team is good with him.
It's wild that probably the top 2 streaming options this week, which I may sound like a dummy for saying this because it won't be out till after the game, was Brock Purdy and Mike White.
Yes.
It's crazy that's what we're at the fantasy playoffs. But you mentioned Bam, Zonovan Knight. And now I think this is a great question. I'm going to leave it up to you guys because technically the Lions, the Lions are a top 10 team against running backs in terms of points allowed. But Bam Knight has had double digits in 3 straight games. Are you still rolling with him? And what would be considered a red matchup?
Yep.
Yeah, I am. He's one of these guys that if you've been playing him, you're probably beat up and desperate at the running back position. So you most likely don't have a better option.
Okay, Knight or Swift in the same matchup? I didn't expect to stump you in the first one.
Yeah, it's you're talking about Swift here, and Swift has been my guy this year that I'm fighting hard for. I took him in our redraft league, but I also have him in every dynasty league for a reason. I really do think that this guy is big time. And if the Lions would actually use him, and if the Lions would stop pulling him out of the game when they're on the 2-yard line to make sure Jamal Williams gets a touchdown, Swift could be amazing. All that being said, I'd probably go Knight just because I don't like Swift against the Jets defense.
Knight or Zeke?
Zeke.
I'm going to agree with Tyler on both of those.
Okay,
I wanted to say Swift, but my gut was saying Knight, and then I'll go Zeke.
Okay, and then Knight or David Montgomery dealing with an illness against the Eagles?
I'm going with Knight.
Cool. I like it.
Knight's pretty far up in the RB2 territory, then I'll say.
For sure.
From those.
All right, 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. We got to go to the best game of the week. Cardinals Broncos.
Start nobody. All right, move on. Just kidding.
Reminder. Kyler Murray got hurt. He's done for the year. This Broncos defense is really good. So I guess I'll kick this off with Zonovan Knight or James Conner.
James Conner has been a savior for people down the stretch, even though it doesn't seem like, because we're not talking about the Cardinals.
Okay.
So I'm trying to look up who's going to play quarterback for the Cardinals because
Colt McCoy.
But Colt McCoy's beat up. I think he's probably going to go. Their backup is Trace McSorley.
Dude, he went viral. That audio sound on TikTok, I know y'all heard it. It'd be wild if he comes out, but it'd be Colt McCoy. With that said, and I talk about how good the Broncos defense are, we'll put this in the "Are we getting too cute?" DeAndre Hopkins.
No, play Hopkins. Don't lose your game because you benched the best receiver in the NFL.
You're probably limiting it after Hopkins, Hollywood, sketchy. You're not playing Dortch or Rondale Moore, but Hopkins has proven he can do it with any quarterback. I
pissed Hopkins. Cody off so much with that best receiver comment.
I don't even know. He's good, but I don't even know if he's in the top 5 anymore. That's no
No, that's
disrespect. We just have
bull.
a
that now you're
okay. Let's do it. Stephon Diggs or DeAndre Hopkins.
Diggs.
I'm assuming people are healthy. Cooper Kupp or DeAndre Hopkins.
Hey, Cooper Kupp with or without Stafford?
It doesn't matter. He won the Triple Crown with Stafford.
Yeah, so without Stafford, I would say Hopkins.
I'm gonna
Okay.
go Hopkins. Hopkins has done it with quarterbacks not on the top tier.
So you're
Kupp's been
saying
up and
right
down with
now
it.
that DeAndre Hopkins is a better wide receiver than Cooper Kupp.
Bro, I'm just saying that we've seen DeAndre Hopkins elevate quarterbacks play. I don't think I've seen Cooper Kupp do that. As good as Cooper Kupp is, he's still right behind DeAndre Hopkins.
Okay, Tyreek Hill or DeAndre Hopkins.
Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I guess Tyreek.
Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins.
Adams.
Okay, you're all
Adams.
lucky. Justin Jefferson or DeAndre Hopkins.
See, okay, so we had this debate like a few podcasts ago. I don't even know how many ago. You guys out there obviously listen to every single podcast, so you can tell me better. But we had the debate of best wide receiver, and it's really tough to say because if we're talking like best speed wide receiver, it's Tyreek. If we're talking like best wide receiver, like catching ability, I think it's D Hop. Like out of everybody. If we're talking about, man, I don't know, best gadget wide receiver that can play anywhere, probably Cooper Kupp. Like,
Yep.
Best wide receiver is a very like foggy kind of category because you can't just base it off of like fantasy points or stats. Like at this point in his career, yes, Hopkins is coming down the slope a little bit, but at the same time, like if I'm in a situation where I need to throw it up into double coverage and hope I get a win, I'd put DeAndre Hopkins in there over Cooper Kupp, over Justin Jefferson, maybe over Stephon Diggs. Like, I'd rather have D Hop in that situation. If I'm in a situation where I need like an 80-yard bomb, yeah, I'd go Tyreek Hill. I'd go Justin Jefferson. Like, it depends on what the situation is. But as far as one of the best receivers in the league, definitely DeAndre Hopkins.
I'm with you because like well-rounded brings up like Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson in that, in my opinion. You can talk route runners and even Keenan Allen's up there in that kind of situation. Like, yeah, I'm with you. It depends on what you're looking for and what fits your team's scheme, which again, that also comes down to who's playing around you. But it's so hard to judge it because of that. I'm with you, Tyler.
So I named 5 people, and the only one you said was Cooper Kupp. But we won't have to debate this because we're already going along in the show. But you have to throw out Jamar Chase. It's still early for him. AJ Brown, we can talk about him. In terms of being, you're not going to like him because he's a Titans player. But in terms of all around, I get what you're saying about the jump ball thing. But like DeAndre Hopkins, or like, he very similar in a way to like how Michael Thomas used to be considered like the top wide receiver. And I never bought it because he could run slants and he had really good hands. But he wasn't an overall, like, Hopkins struggles with separation issues. He struggles now he can go up and make a hell of a jump ball. I'll give him that. And I still think he's a top, 10 wide receiver. I just don't think he's in the top 5 anymore. And I'm still blown away that you were like, not Cooper Kupp. But that's a debate for the offseason. What game are we even on?
Cardinals, Broncos. We have to talk about the Broncos side of the ball. Still, Cortland Sutton did not participate in practice. Russell Wilson somehow is a limited participant in practice, and I expect him to miss a week with how bad that concussion looked, and it looks like he has a chance to go this weekend.
Does that make you feel worse or better? That sounded like a super like rude thing to say, but when Brett Rippon came in there, that offense moved.
So yeah, I get that, but they were also playing the Chiefs, who don't have a passing defense.
Broncos
I don't
country.
know. I think
let's ride
regardless
the bench.
of let's ride the bench. No, I think regardless of who the quarterback is, you can play Jerry Jeudy, and you can especially play Greg Dulcich. He's the top of my dartboard because the Cardinals give up 1.5 billion points to tight ends.
Every week, I think Dulcich is going to be like, he's going to get that 20-point week. He's going to get that breakout week. And every week he gets you like 8. And I'm kind of disappointed because I thought he would do more. But then you look at the tight end scope and you're like, 8's pretty good.
8's a top 10 tight end probably every other week at least. So yeah, you're not doing too bad.
All right. Latavius Murray, you playing him?
No.
Latavius Murray, J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. Dobbins.
Latavius Murray, Travis Etienne.
Travis Etienne.
ETN.
Latavius Murray or Jerick McKinnon. Dude, you could say and then stumps him. Love it. Great timing.
No, I was going to say you could say pretty much anyone. I'm going to say, the other person. I'll still say McKinnon.
Yeah, I'll still say McKinnon.
That rush defense is too bad. And he had a big week.
Fair enough. Then the Broncos aren't worth talking about. Let's move on to the next game. We have taken way too long. So, New England Patriots, Las Vegas Raiders. We are having fun. The issue is people are going to see that this episode is 2 hours long and be like, well, not listening to that one. Attention spans are way too short for this kind of a long podcast. New England Patriots at Las Vegas Raiders. Josh Jacobs was limited. If he plays, you're playing him. He's been one of the best running backs this season. Anybody who took Josh Jacobs in the second round of fantasy drafts or even third round, maybe even later, you're probably in the fantasy playoffs right now because you got an absolute steal. Raiders side of the ball, we're also going to play Devontae Adams. Anybody else on the Raiders side?
Darren Waller, if he's activated, because the tight end landscape is so bad that you can just play him and hope.
Sure. I don't debate tight ends.
We don't debate tight ends.
We don't debate tight ends. So the Patriots-wise, there was an NFL Films clip going out of Bill Belichick and DeAndre Hopkins talking to each other, thinking that the Patriots are going to trade for Hopkins this offseason. So that's fun that's already started. But we're talking about this week, this matchup. Yeah, Ramondre Stevenson, DNP, Damian Harris, limited. Like, I think you can play the running back. Like, hopefully Stevenson can go, because then that's a no-brainer, even coming off an injury, because the Raiders' defense isn't very good. But if Stevenson doesn't go, like, do you roll with Harris, or do you think one of those other guys that showed up on Monday Night Football?
Well, the other dude's name was Harris, so...
Actually, I think it ends up being Pierre Strong that was the most productive, but him and Harris split so much that I'm not convinced that either of them are good enough if both Stevenson and Damian Harris don't go. So I'm really hoping at this point that it's either Stevenson and we're good, or it's just Damian Harris. And Damian Harris is going to be fine, in my opinion, if he's good, if he's playing.
Okay. That's all I got for the Patriots. I don't need to talk about the quarterback or the receivers.
Cool. Tyler, take it away with the Tennessee Titans traveling out to the Los Angeles Chargers.
This is a Couch GMs battle.
It is a Couch GMs battle. It is two Couch GMs' favorite team here. You are playing Derrick Henry.
For sure.
That's it.
Great analysis. Fantastic. Nailed it. Good.
Only other thing I would say is tight end dartboard. Chigoziem Okonkwo is really starting to come into his own. The dude is a playmaker. If they would actually throw him the ball, Titans don't have any receivers. Treylon Burks might be back this game. If he does, I mean, potential flex play, but I still don't love it. So, yeah, I'd say Derrick Henry, dartboard, Chig.
I am glad you brought up Chig because I hope you saw I gave him some love, even over Evan Ingram on the waiver wire article. If you didn't, I got you. But anyway, Charger side of the ball, Austin Eckler, good to go. Same with Justin Herbert. Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, I think, are both good. So, Gerald Everett, because tight ends, we don't debate tight ends.
Correct. That's why I didn't say anything about Chig.
Dude, start everybody on the Chargers. Fuck, like, throw anybody you can think of. Put their water boy in there. Titans don't have anybody on defense. Their entire starting defense is injured. So we got like
George,
down to
now
like
we have to hit
strings.
the explicit button.
George,
I said pho. I meant to say fun, but I stopped.
Okay. George,
Sorry,
since Tyler is so out on the Tennessee Titans and
his
fandom is, causing bias in his fantasy analysis, whatever. You get the point.
Yeah.
Treylon Burks, if he goes, Treylon Burks or Adam Thielen?
I'll go Treylon Burks. Call me crazy. Treylon Burks.
So would I.
Okay, cool. That's 2 out of 3. Doesn't matter what Tyler says. Moving on. Cincinnati Bengals traveling to the high-powered offense that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, except not really at all. Julio Jones did not participate. It's been so frustrating when we're talking about Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, even the running backs to an extent. I don't even know where to tell people to go when it comes to playing Buccaneers on offense. Like, where are you at?
As a football fan, how nice was it to see Tom Brady get absolutely doo-dooed on? Like, I'm trying to avoid the explicit tag there, but to get absolutely pooped on, to see angry Brady on the sideline the whole game, just as a football fan, beautiful. I might get a fat head of angry Brady. Do they still make fat heads?
My favorite character in the whole NFL, and yes, they do still make fat heads.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool, but you asked a question about fantasy. This is not a great matchup. The Bengals defense is pretty good, and the Buccaneers offense is really bad, and I'm really having a hard time on, am I being too cute, or do I play Mike Evans and or Chris Godwin? So I need you to help me out. So I'll let you guys answer that.
Play him over Adam Thielen.
Okay.
Yeah, you play them both over Adam Thielen. Fine. But that's about it. Honestly, looking back at it, Mike Evans hasn't scored more than 10 points since week 8. Since week 8.
Yes, I know. I have him in the league that I missed the playoffs.
I'd probably.
Has Godwin been any better?
Godwin hasn't been too bad. He also hasn't been too great.
He's been better.
I'm probably playing Godwin if I have him. I mean, I really don't think Godwin's that bad of a play still. But Mike Evans, I'd probably see if I can bench him. But look, if you got Mike Evans, you probably don't have that many wide receivers you can throw in there. Like, do you really want to pick up and start like a Zay Jones over him? Like, probably not. But yeah, if you are deep, if you were one of the lucky ones that was able to snag like a Chris Olave earlier in the season, so you have better depth, or a Garrett Wilson earlier in the season, like, then yeah, you can bench Mike Evans.
All right, my expert analysis says that Mike Evans is going to have 3 at least decent games down the stretch here because he's at 805 yards, and the narrative has always been Mike Evans is on this ridiculous stretch of 1,000-yard season, so he's got to at least get to 1,000. So he's going to get at least 195 yards in these last 3 games, so it's going to be fairly decent for fantasy. There's my expert analysis.
Isn't there 4 games though?
Mm-hmm.
Just 3.
Yeah, right. There is 4.
So we're not even talking 50 yards a game.
Yeah, never mind. Okay, we're good. Just kidding. Just strike that whole thing.
George does math well.
No, I looked at the fantasy platform where it cuts off at week 17 and doesn't show week 18, so I'm thinking there's 3 weeks left.
Gotcha.
My bad.
All good,
so
but
3 years ago,
right?
Hello. But speaking about frustrations and stuff like that, we didn't really talk much about it, but the T. Higgins fiasco last week that potentially cost people, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you obviously don't have T. Higgins. He tweaked his hamstring on, I believe, Thursday's practice, was limited, then was off the injury report on Friday, then supposedly tweaked his hamstring again in warmups, and after inactives were already out, so he played 1 snap and then missed the rest of the game, and he was started in over 96% of fantasy leagues, and he's been a top fantasy wide receiver, so that's been frustrating. So now that he's still limited with that hamstring, are you concerned at all about Higgins? Obviously, I think if they say he's going to play, you still got to roll with them despite what happened last week.
Nope.
But
plays or not, I'm out. I'm done. Benched. I know what T. Higgins can do. I know the value he brings. This might even be me getting too cute, but I don't want to lose a game because, hamstrings, it's not like he's going out there and like he had a concussion and his head kind of hurt, like, or he was going out there and I don't even know, some other injury happened, but it's a hamstring. Hamstrings are the most lingering injuries ever. We've seen so many players that are like, you know what, my hamstring feels good. And then 3 plays into the game, they're like, yeah, never mind, my hamstring's bad. I don't trust it, especially after last week. If I have T. Higgins, I'm benching him this week.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. Are you confident putting any of these guys in your lineup, just generally? Any of the Patriots receivers?
I mean, in a normal sense, no.
I can name them all out if you want, but no.
In a
Okay.
typical sense, no.
Jahan Dotson,
No.
Richie James,
Nope.
Van Jefferson,
Nope.
Romeo Dobbs.
Not bad.
Okay. Tyler Boyd.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you can go out there and Tyler Boyd happens to be available in your league and you can handcuff yourself with him, or maybe with Romeo Dobbs in that case, you can go out there and try to roll with Higgins. But I'm worried about another situation where they name him out right before the game starts, a game time decision, and then you're stuck with playing one of those other random guys that I've said who happen to be available on your waiver wire. So, like, that's where I'm at. If you can handcuff yourself with somebody that plays later, then go ahead and try to roll with Higgins. If not, don't risk it.
I feel like you're all being too cute, and that was the message we mentioned, but maybe I'm wrong. I understand that the frustrations that happened last week. I mean, Keenan Allen did it a couple years ago, right around the same time, too. He was going to play. He played one snap and didn't go. But I think because the Bengals are
Higgins
already
has done this a couple of times too, though. Like, there's a track record of Higgins doing this to us. If it was just the one, like this was the only time it happened, that's fine. But people have gotten burned by him 3 times this year.
Yeah, but I guess I'm still in the mindset I'm going to play Higgins over every Patriots wide receiver.
Well, yeah, that's if you want to handcuff and potentially play him if he gets ruled out.
I'm saying to handcuff yourself. Yeah.
I'm in the sense that I am benching him regardless, and whoever you have on your bench should be decent enough to throw in there over him. Like, I'm playing Adam Thielen over T. Higgins this week.
You're crazy. If he's questionable going into the game and you want to play him before, like, or something like that, but if he's off the injury report again, like the NFL is already looking into this, like, was this an actual, like, did they misreport the injury? Like, they've looked into this. So they're not going to fall for that. Like, if he's off the injury report, I think he's good to go.
If they're being investigated, there's no way they take him off the injury report. They're going to list him as questionable just to cover their own butts.
Okay.
I would play J.K.
Sunday Night
Dobbins
Football
over T. Higgins. That's how much I am benching T. Higgins.
New York Giants, Washington Commanders, Sunday Night Football. This game got flexed into the primetime game. So what are the odds they tie again?
I hope so.
Dude. No.
That'd be so fun. Are you kidding me?
Doesn't want them to tie.
If it didn't affect the Packers' chances of making the playoffs, they're very slim. I believe they have a 6% chance. Then I would be rooting for it. Ties are great.
As someone who doesn't care about the Packers, I hope they tie.
Okay.
Yeah,
so actually, I forget which podcast it was, and we've already gone long, so I'm just going to ask another random question because why the heck not? If divisional teams tie in their first matchup, should the second game count as 2 wins or 2 losses? Just make it a double for nothing.
Nope.
Would that be a fun idea?
Fun idea? Sure, but no, it shouldn't happen.
Okay. Wow, you guys are a lot lamer than like they talked about it. It was a lot more fun. They talked about how like
I just feel like that would screw up so many other parts of the standings outside of divisional that you just can't do that.
Yeah, and I feel like if you didn't win the first game, you don't deserve to get 2 wins the second time.
Yeah, you deserve that half a win, half a loss, and you just got to sit with it.
The only argument I agree, like I don't think it would ever logistically work, but I think it would bring some excitement to ties. It would bring some excitement to divisional games, like in that rare situation that this happens. I think it'd be a fun twist overall, but I agree it's not logistically ever going to work. But it was just a fun.
This honestly still makes it fun for a divisional matchup after a tie, though, because now the winner of this game is going to get the straight out tiebreaker against the other, as opposed to if they split 1-1, then you're going to divisional record and strength of schedule and all those other stupid tiebreakers. Like this, honestly, now you have a straight. This is going to be the person with that tiebreaker of the other team.
Okay, but what if they just? I mean, made it a continuation of the game. It'd be fun. They were like 24-24 kickoff. Like that'd be wild. You got to admit, it'd at least be wild.
I still feel like it should be like hockey, and if you get through the entire regulation of overtime and it's still tied, like you should go into some type of shootout or some kind of, I don't even care if it's a skills
Field
competition.
goal
I don't care.
kickoff.
Take ties out of the game. Find some way to get somebody a win there. Nobody wants to see a tie except me this week, but
We'll talk ties and overtime rules in the offseason. In fantasy, New York Giants side of the ball, Bellinger was a limited participant in practice. Richie James is also a limited participant in practice. It's Saquon Barkley.
yep.
Yeah.
Is that it? Daniel Jones, streamer.
I
option?
legit thought you were asking me if I was playing Saquon Barkley.
No, Saquon Barkley's in. I guess the only other person I'd consider is Daniel Jones as a streamer. Where you at on that?
Yeah, Vanilla Vic. You can do
Nope.
worse. You can do worse than Vanilla Vic. Come on, I would play him over Deshaun Watson.
I wouldn't.
Yes. Wow, Cody's really flipped on Deshaun Watson here. I still hate him as a play in fantasy, and maybe as a person, but we're not going to get to that.
Yeah, I'd play Deshaun Watson over Daniel Jones this week for sure.
Over Vanilla Vic. Really?
Yes.
Danny Dimes. Like, the man has multiple nicknames. He's got to be good.
Danny fullback all the way there. I'll keep us on track. Commander side of the ball, both running backs are limited participants. I'm expecting both of them to go. Are you playing both, neither one or the other?
I would play Brian Robinson over Antonio Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is a game
Dobbins.
script for Robinson, in my opinion. I think I already said I'd play JK instead, so I'm going to stick with that. This is a game script that should work for Robinson. I think Gibson's good in games are expected to be down, but this one should be close. Scary Terry? Anybody?
For sure.
Yeah, flex play. For sure.
Okay. Cool. Think that's good there. Anyone else I missed?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Cody, you've been waiting to talk about the Packers' playoff chances. Packers hosting the Rams, and I think it's going to be a cold one.
It is.
Talking about weather. Go ahead, Cody.
Very cold
Talk
game.
Packers.
So the Packers, this will be the first time all season they have their 5 starting wide receivers healthy that they wanted to play. We get the debut of Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs playing significant snaps together. Lazard's still in there. Sam Watkins still there. Samari Toure. Those are the 5 that I'm talking about. And with that said, you're probably going to play Christian Watson, and the Aaron Jones. I know he's limited, but you're probably going to play him. And then we can probably stop talking about the Packers, unfortunately.
Fair enough.
Go ahead.
I will say I just cut Robert Tunyon in a Dynasty League for Chiggy because I felt like Chiggy had the better Dynasty value than Tunyon did. I feel like Tunyon was kind of a flash in the pan. I hate to say it, but I really thought Tunyon would have a great year because of the lack of wide receiver depth that the Packers were rolling in with this year. So I'm kind of disappointed in how he's turned out, but then again, he's slow. A tight end, so
yeah, he's been slow coming off his torn ACL from last season. That's for sure.
There's some people that do have a year where they struggle and then they come back to normal. Actually, before we get off the Packers, I don't know if you're going to keep talking or not. I had a question that came in that was interesting. Christian Watson or Jalen Waddle?
Waddle.
I'm Watson.
Yeah, I was trying not to be biased, but I'm going to play Watson as well. I mean, 8 touchdowns.
We already know how I feel about Waddle, so.
Yes.
And I would play Rodgers over Waddle. Daniel Jones this week. But I wouldn't play either. But I just wanted to throw that out there.
Just to sneak Aaron Rodgers in there. Los Angeles Rams, I don't know. I don't want this team.
So I'm like super. So like I want to say Cam Akers. Like I might even have put him on the start. I think I might have because of how bad the run defense is for the Packers.
You did put him as a start.
But then I heard a stat today listening to a preview for the Packers Rams game, and the Rams don't have a rusher to rush over 65 yards all season. Think about that.
I mean, it's really not that surprising. Do we really think Darrell Henderson was going off? Do we really think Cam Akers is going off?
But like in today's, like, you
Over
could
how
get
many
a
yards?
65.
Oh, okay, Akers had 61. I was gonna say 61 twice actually.
But like that's not explosive runs or anything, because like
No.
some guys will get 25 on one carry and then be able to get 2 all the way to 65. So I thought that was interesting. But the
they
Packers
don't
run
have the
defense has been
quarterback
real
that's
bad.
running. Matt Stafford's not using his wheels out there. Neither is John Wolford. They don't really do the wide receiver end arounds like Deebo Samuel gets used a lot in the run game and stuff. They don't really do that as much. So I don't think it's that surprising, but it is like sad. It's definitely sad. The Rams really did fall from greatness, going from Super Bowl to this garbage.
Yeah, that's for sure. But they have Baker Mayfield this week. Does that, he had to come back. I'm not saying play Baker Mayfield, but does that, you brought up Van Jefferson a little bit ago. Does that, spark your interest in him? Like, do you think that any of these Rams players become valuable at all?
No, I really hope
No.
Baker goes off. I hope Baker kind of resurrects his career with this at the end of the season here with the Rams, earns himself a starting job somewhere next year. But at the same time, like, I just feel like once Cooper Kupp went down, the Rams were kind of like, all right, that's it. We're going to play like 6 wide receivers. They're all mediocre, but we're going to spread it out to all of them. And that's kind of how it feels. Like, I think that it's going to be Van Jefferson, but then Ben Skoranek starts catching passes. So I'm like, okay, maybe he is worth something. And then Tutu Atwell starts catching passes. Like they just have, I don't want to say too many weapons because they're not impressive, but they really just try to spread the ball out, which honestly in their sense is smart. If you start singling one guy out and being like, you know what, I think this is the guy we're going to lean on, it makes defenses able to game plan. But if you just spread it out completely, you can't game plan for any of their wide receivers. Maybe you can make something happen. So even with Baker, I'm still out on the receivers. And because I'm out on the receivers, I'm also out on Baker.
Tyler hit the nail on the head. We like to say Van Jefferson's the guy, but their targets last week were 9 to Tutu Atwell, 8 to Ben Skoranek, and 4 to Van Jefferson. The only guys that had 4 or more. I don't like any of them.
Okay, I'm with you. I want to go back to the Packers real quick because I want to throw A.J. Dillon's name, of course, into the mix. As where are you guys at with him after his big game in Chicago, coming off the bye, and Jones a little banged up? See a guy you'd be looking at?
I don't trust
J.K. Dobbins or A.J. Dillon.
Ooh. I mean, maybe A.J. Dillon in that case then, but I just don't trust him. I mean, he's a backup running back that one game will get heavily utilized, get touchdowns, look like a big piece, and the next game is just non-existent. I just, in the fantasy playoffs, I really don't want to have to rely on A.J. Dillon. During the regular season, I might take the chance on him. Fantasy playoffs, like, my ride or die is reliant on him. I'm going to try to avoid it.
I'm with Tyler, and the matchup's actually tough for running backs. Even though the Rams stink, they actually give up a lot through the air. So,
well, Donald's out this week, most likely. So that was the big reason I was asking.
I guess I would go J.K. Dobbins over A.J. Dillon.
That's it.
We finally got one.
We got a J.K. Dobbins from Tyler Snyder. Thank you for making it through this wild ride. There's been train sounds. There's been arguments on top 5 wide receivers. But at the end of the day, that's what Couch GMs do. So it's been good, and thanks for listening.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump right to the tagline to keep this episode as short as I possibly can at this point. This podcast is so much more fun for us and more fun for you when you get involved.
Yes, it is, Tyler. Thank you all one more time for listening in to the Couch GMs podcast. For Cody Roadcap and Tyler Snyder, I'm George Kerth. Good luck this week, and we will see you all next week.